Welcome, welcome to all of you, zooming in from Scotland, California, and other parts of the world. I am Mary White, here with co-chair of WEAD, Manoush Zomorodinia, to celebrate the launch of issue 13 of the WEAD Magazine, Women Eco-Artist Dialogue. We proudly present renowned eco-artist Reiko Goto and Tim Collins, who will be talking from Scotland about their 30+ years of empathetic art making and research in collaboration with trees, butterflies, birds, and more. They communicate through deep listening with nature's non-human communities, combining educated, intuitive strategies of art and science. Women Eco-Artist Dialogue was started in 1996. It's a volunteer-run collective of female-identified visual artists, writers, curators, art historians, researchers, scientists, and others interested in highlighting the intersection of art and ecological issues. We'll start with a land acknowledgement, and please put your land acknowledgement or location in the chat, if you wish. WEAD's office stands and virtually sits on the territory of the Wichen, the ancestral and unceded land of the Chichonio-speaking Ohlone people, the successors of the sovereign Verona Band of Alameda County, near one of the largest shell mounds in the Bay Area. This land was and continues to be of great importance to the Miwok Ohlone tribe and other familiar descendants of the Verona Band. We recognize the Miwok Ohlone tribe, who are campaigning to become federally recognized, the Association of Ramaytush Ohlone, who are researching, revitalizing, and preserving Ramaytush Ohlone history and culture, and the Confederated Villages of Lejeune and Socorro Land Trust, who are working to return native land back to Indigenous stewardship, including here in Berkeley. A little Zoom housekeeping. We are recording this presentation. Please keep your audio muted during the presentation. The host may mute you if there's extra noise. After the presentation finishes, we will stop the first recording and start a second recording for questions and answers. If you have questions during the presentation, please put them in the chat for the questions section. WEAD's vision is to continue for another decade as our global network of women artists grow. And we just in the process of rebuilding our new artist directory. Please give generously to support this vision by visiting the donate button on our website or sending a check. We'd like to say that we also have just launched, as well as the magazine, the Power of Empathy online exhibition of WEAD members, of selected juried WEAD members, and members of the magazine author group. So please check that out. So now I would like to introduce WEAD co-founder Susan Leibowitz-Steinman, who's the magazine editor and the WEAD co-founder. And then she will be introducing Jane Chin Davidson, who's our WEAD board member and magazine co-editor, who will lead the discussion after the presentation. So Susan, please take it away.
You're muted.
The person who doesn't know how to do this. Okay. Welcome, everybody. I'm really happy to see you, and a very warm welcome to Reiko and Tim. I have known them for at least 30 years, and I think we gave each other a few gray hairs, but I don't know. But anyways, they are such fabulous, dedicated artists and researchers into the way the world works. And I'm thinking that our other co-founder, Joe Hansen, introduced us, but none of us can completely remember, but I do think that that's true. And they lived at the farm and Bonnie Shirk's project with other people. And they started their careers after they left the San Francisco Art Institute And I have been wanting to have Reiko as the featured artist for several years. And then finally we landed this year. And when I started thinking about her personality and the way she works and what her strategies are, the word empathy was the absolute first word that popped into my head. And Reiko, you might not know this, but I built the entire magazine issue around your strategy. And it is in your honor for sure. And it's nice to see the younger artists that, you know, that sent in proposals. So many people working with empathy now. And you are really one, you and Dominique Mazod from Santa Fe, in her cleaning of the Santa Fe River, of the Rio Grande. You're the first people that I think of, you know, when it comes to this way of working. And Tim and Reiko have been collaborating since the 1980s. You know, they do their own work, but they come together to work and have done these like really poetic, majestic, quiet projects that a person has to look at and think for a long time. And it's just not, you know, an easy one to understand what they're doing, because they do deep research and deep empathy, and have worked with many. Their work with trees is phenomenal. And I'm not going to talk too much longer because I was supposed to introduce Jane first. Jane Chin Davidson from San Bernardino is one of our newest board members, and she's a gift. She's really a gift. I'm so glad that we have her. And she has published books on eco artists and feminism and performance, and the Chinese artist diaspora. I will use that word. Is it correct use, Jane? Sort of, you know, people's identities when they leave their countries and go live in other countries and establish another identity, but bring their birth identities with them. And I think that maybe Reiko is one of those people. But, and maybe Tim too, from his, I also knew him as a surfer from Southern California, right? So Jane, would you like to say hello? I'll let you say hello.
Yes, well, thank you so much, Susan, for that nice introduction for me. I'm so delighted to be a part of this welcoming committee for this talk with Reiko and Tim Collins. I've had the great pleasure of participating in the development of WEAD Magazine number 13, and that's exactly right. Reiko was the great inspiration behind our discussions around the subject of empathy for this special issue. And true to expectations, Reiko's essay, such an amazing contribution, so ahead of her time, the kind of performative explorations that she discussed in her title, Empathetic Relationship with Living Things, a Butterfly, Rats, a Pigeon, Trees, and a Horse. This is truly a moving study of different relationships between human and non-human life, a study explored not only through Reiko's vision, but through her expressions of phenomenological touch, sound, smell even. And the most impressive is that the visual artist can convey these sensory engagements with words, with mere formidable English language words. So I am so very looking forward to Reiko's continued speech act here today. She is an artist who truly exemplifies eco art engagement. And without taking any more of Reiko's time, I'll pass the mic back to Susan.
Well, that was beautiful, Jane. Thank you so much. And not to leave Tim out, Tim is a great intellect. He has done years and years of research, and it's phenomenal to read his writing. And I'm very appreciative of his work and of their work together. And I think you will too. So I don't want to take up any more of their time other than to introduce from Glasgow, outside of Glasgow, Scotland, Reiko Goto Collins and Tim Collins, artist extraordinaire. The screen is yours.
You're gonna set the
Yeah.
screen.
Okay. Oh, can I just say things?
Go ahead.
Okay. I just sorry. I know everybody's waiting for, but I'd like to say thank you for inviting us. We feel really honored to be here. And then to the audience, thank you very much for coming on Sunday. Your time is very important. Thank you. And then Jane, just special thanks because she edited my article, and I was very struggling and then crying, and then she just very kindly edited my work, so we could all go forward. Thank you very much. Okay, now going to make share screen, and then click
Share
the
sound.
share
Yes, there we
sound,
go.
and then share. Right, and then make it
Oh.
slide. Okay, presentation. All right.
Should I start?
Please do.
So, it's been a busy year for us. A lot of good things have gone on. Reiko's written 3 articles about some of this work. One that takes a more theoretical and historical approach to it. This WEAD opportunity was by far her favorite. And she's also got something coming out in Grant Kester's Field Journal of Social Practice in the next month or 2. And I'm very pleased. You know, when we got the notice and you invited me to, I was like, yahoo! I'm going to ask the questions that nobody asks Reiko. So we're gonna hear a little bit about the work that Reiko doesn't talk about, or Reiko doesn't share very often, or the work that people haven't seen. We're also gonna together, we're going to provide you a glimpse of life spent in interrelationship with critters and more than human others, and what that means, the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's been a hell of an adventure over the last 30 years, but so it goes. So we're going to get started here. So Reiko, so I'm mostly going to ask questions, and Reiko's going to answer, and I'm going to aid and abet where I can. So back in 1988 and 1989, Reiko, you were working with folded and unfolded origami cranes, yeah? In 1989, you initiated your Headlands residency with a series of works with butterflies and rats. What was changing at that time about your thinking? What was changing? What was causing a change in your thinking about what it meant to be an artist? And these images help illustrate this, don't they?
Okay, thank you. Yes, right after I graduated from San Francisco Art Institute, our MA program, I was working a part-time job at the Exploratorium, working with Mildred Howard. And then also, I was volunteering at Marine Wildlife Center in San Rafael. It said marine, but it doesn't mean the sea wildlife. It's more like land wildlife, baby birds, and then mammals. Only once a week, but I worked there for 4 years. And then towards the end, I started bringing some animals, baby animals, to our studio / home because they needed home care before releasing. And then one time we had over 100 pigeons in our studio. And then this photographs about raccoons, baby raccoons. Baby raccoons needs intense care, not just feeding, but also teaching how to climb the trees and then get off the trees, or playing, catching the crayfish, playing with water. So the left-hand side, Tim is teaching how to climb up the tree.
So Reiko, who brought you into this? Can you talk about Jane Oka a little bit?
Yes, I had a mentor, Jane Oka, who grew up in Japanese concentration camp. And then, so she was working and then taught me how to take care of baby mammals. And then she's very special. It just, sometimes because the milk we were giving, it was totally artificial milk. So the ratio, sometimes the virus gets to their intestine and then becoming very weak. And in that time, I really needed to show to Jane. And then when I brought Jane's place, it's just we were in the bathroom and she was sitting at, on the bathtub, and then just she said to the baby raccoon, what can I do for you? And then she started brushing the raccoon very softly, and then takes when freeze from that far, and then just I just learned that moment, how she dealt with animals.
Should we go to the next slide?
Yes. Okay.
So Reiko, this is one of my favorite pieces, and you never talk about it. It's called Meditation Place Korogi.
Cold.
Yes.
Cold.
And it was at Gallery Route 1 Point Reyes in 1990. What the heck's going on here?
It's a little embarrassing, your favorite, because it was kind of in a way, half failure. But the gallery was in Point Reyes, and very beautiful, small but very beautiful place. And Mary Eubank was the director. She kindly invited me to develop the work. So I asked Tim, you to build a floor, false floor on top of the existing floor, and then under the floor I put many boxes to hold crickets, and then sawdust and food and then water. And then once a week I went there to check and then refeed the food. Of course, you can probably imagine, and the intention was try to create a sound space in the empty gallery, but I didn't test enough. I didn't live long enough how they really make a sound. So that when people went in and they stopped singing, there's no way to hear the sound. And then, now, the technology is very, easy to set it up, the recording, but Point Reyes was very far from our studio, and then we didn't have enough equipment to do that.
No, wait a minute. I asked you why you didn't set up a recording, and you had an answer for that.
What was the answer? What's my answer? I didn't have a good recording.
No. The answer was that it had to be the living things and silence. Yes. Not a false representation of the living things. You argued that quite vehemently.
Oh, right, okay. Well, anyway, the sound of the crickets, it's just a fake ones, but you can just. So that's I wanted to hear, but anyway. Sorry.
Just go to the next slide.
Okay, next slide. Okay, come on, next slide. Come on.
There we go.
Yes.
Okay, so this is If I Were a Pigeon at Intersection for the Arts, and you've written about this in the WEAD article.
Yes.
But you didn't get to all the details. this is the project where I came home from work one day and there were 100 baby pigeons on every horizontal surface in our studio, which ended up being there for weeks because they had to be fed 3 times a day. We had to help them figure out how to fly. We had to help them learn to eat seeds. It was a very complicated affair, but Reiko will talk about it more at length. But there were also pictures of birds with their toes cut off from portraits from San Francisco, and all kinds of records. But Reiko will talk about this. Go ahead, Reiko. Tell us about this. And there's also what I consider her finest activist work, but it's small activism, yeah?
You're supposed to be about to talk about the activism. Yeah, so this is the intersection gallery in San Francisco, and then you see the left-hand side, 1992. So it's based on pigeon logs from Wildlife Center. 500 pigeons went through the center in a year, and then I wanted to know how many are released. About half, 50% of them are released. But
they survived.
And then other 50% just died in the center. So the candles are the one couldn't make it, and the empty one, actually you see some seeds on the little wooden shells. And then this the person above her, what I like is water and then some grains, because the pigeon's diet is grains. And then also this little basket. So I'm going to move to next basket.
Next slide.
Next slide. Okay. So the basket holds many paper sacks, and inside has those mixture of good grains for pigeons. And but you need to open the paper sack by breaking this law.
So
Pigeon law.
Reiko wants me to read it. So the pigeon law, section 486 of the city of San Francisco, feeding birds and wild animals is prohibited. So this was a freely distributed artwork, and by breaking open the bag to feed the hungry creatures on city streets, it transforms an act of kindness into an act of civil disobedience.
Right. So, well, why? But there's a layer of the reason why I did it. When you see the people are feeding the pigeons in the park or public places, you see their faces. Children to adult and elderly people, unbelievably, gentle and then sweet facial expressions, and then if aesthetic I am looking for, I think that's the figure I'm looking for. And then, I wanted to see more, but the law prohibits. Of course, there are some reasons, because just not to increase the pigeon population, but I would say not to, expose the garbage is probably better solutions. The pigeon is a wildlife, and then they need clean water and good food to survive. And then the relationship with, there is a relationship between people and the bird.
So let me ask one last question. What happened at the Guggenheim? We were sitting out on the garden benches out front long time ago, yeah?
The pigeon, when you see the pigeon loses their toes, and then that's kind of indication of the city stress, because when the city is, if it's city is crowded and then the messy
strings, yeah.
Yes, they get the strings on their toes, and then they cannot take it out by themselves, even if they have beaks, and then the strings get deeper and deeper, and then eventually cut off their toes. And then because I was, handling the hundreds of birds, it's not difficult to grab it or catch it. So that I was doing that day.
So yeah, so a wild pigeon's walking by and it's clearly struggling with its feet. And all of a sudden, Reiko leaps off the bench and captures the pigeon, and people are aghast. They can't believe what she's doing. But what did you do? You cut the string off, yeah?
Yeah, and I had some the sewing kits in my bag, and so just little by little taking.
So another small activism. This woman comes up after she lets the bird go and he flies away. And this woman comes up and she says, "They're filthy creatures. Why would you touch them?" And so she explains very kindly that, there was string tied around his feet and it was hurting. And the woman goes on and on about how nasty these birds are in the city. And Reiko just leans forward and says, "Well, if your feet were tied up with string, I'd cut it off you too."
Anyway.
So this is the installation of Equation at the Hewlett Gallery in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So at this point, we've moved to Pittsburgh. We're working at Carnegie Mellon University. And I want Reiko to talk about this in relationship to another work that most of you folks at WEAD know about called Poison Ivy Toxicodendron. So what's the difference between these two works and what were you trying to accomplish here with at the Hewlett Gallery, Reiko?
Yes. So yeah, we moved from San Francisco to Pittsburgh in 1993, and then I had to restudy, about the plants. West Coast and East Coast are very different. And then also at the time, greenways, and then also biological corridor, and then also notion of native plants. Those issues are very, becoming important to even environmental artists. And then so I wanted to do something, and then looking for this place, and then somebody took me to a place called 9 Mile Run, which is a stream valley filled with slag, which is a byproduct of steel industry. And then so that, and for the gallery, my intention was how to bring people from gallery to 9 Mile Run. So that was the kind of the goals I had, and how to do it. So I found some slag. It was covered by green moss, and then I thought it was beautiful. And then the indication, those moss indicates, other plants can grow. By the way, people who might not know about the slag heap, it's very like a moonscape. It's just bare, porous, too high alkaline soils. Very hard to plants to grow, but little by little, it's changing. And so that I felt most was the primary living things. So I collected those moss covered slag and then put it in the jar, try to keep the moisture. And then also this bookshelves, Tim built, basically close the gallery space. And then there is a sign, you need to go to another space on the campus, which is kind of middle ground. So I found a small shack-like, a garden shack-like place. And then inside of the space, I put many tags, plant names, and then usage of the plants. That those plant names came from 9 Mile Run. I worked with naturalists to identify both native and non-native species in there.
But there are also cultural histories, yeah?
And cultural history to find how those plants are used. And then the third element was to bring people to 9 Mile Run. For the preparation, I used those name tags to put it on the plants, so the people went through, they could read, they could pay attention. Those plants have some meanings. And bottom left is 9 Mile Run. The barre is the slag heap, and then the stream is right there.
Do you want me to read that?
Okay, so that's milkweed tag.
Yes, this is a milkweed tag, and it was actually Thomas Edison who was using the gummy sap of common milkweed, as he was one of the early champions of milkweed latex as a rubber source, but eventually abandoned the idea of commercial production. So that's the kind of cultural history that was attached to every single plant that she could identify on the site. Okay, we can go to the next.
Next.
So of course, this is poison ivy. So can you talk about this? And this is showing the actual exhibition.
At the brew house.
Yeah, at the Brew House Gallery in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Yes, it was a group exhibition, and Rosenthal and then Steffi Domike created this group exhibitions. And then you can see the plant specimen, and then also photographs, and then some writing called urushi, means laka. Made of, so laka is in Japan made of some a type of poison ivy family, and then picture of some moss larva. That this kind use poison ivy as a larva plant, and then urushi laka, red and then black and then red pigments, and then this is a product. Wooden bowl.
Wait a minute, Reiko.
Yes.
You're missing the whole part about why you were fondling poison ivy in the first place.
Okay, yes. So the poison ivy, because of 9 Mile Run project, I'm getting familiar where they grow, and then I get the rash. Tim gets worse, but it just the relationship with people, with animals, plants, something, fear, and then try to get closer, and then I thought, there might be a really, scary feeling about this plant. But when I touched the plant, it's very cool and then so smooth. And then when I closed my eyes, felt like there's almost like a figure, very dark green or purple, or, it's just the presence of the plant. I will never forget. It's very different from hateful or fear, or so I just wanted to carry this experience through my work.
Right. Yeah, very good. Thank you. So this is one of the most interesting works that Reiko's ever done. Nobody's ever seen it unless you've looked at our website. It's about the ivory-billed woodpecker. And I'll let Reiko tell them about what you did and why you did it.
Ivory-billed woodpecker is when I well, sorry, I'm a little bit muttering. Alexander Wilson, who is a Scottish American ornithologist, like Audubon. He was a draftsman of birds and made wonderful birds drawings, and then some stories. And then one of them was he caught ivory-billed woodpecker and then brought into the hotel where he was working on his drawing. But the bird was so wild and then also really, stressed out being in the cage. So made huge noise, like almost like hurting baby. Everybody got scared about its sound. So Wilson decided to put the bird cage under the wooden table and then covered with tablecloth, and then left the room until the bird became quiet. But the bird didn't want to be just in a small cage. And even
So when he got back, yeah.
yeah, he saw was the head was sticking out the table, so broke a part of the wooden table and tried to get out. And then Wilson finished his beautiful drawings. However, the woodpecker died. And then I was I wanted to see different ending, about this bird. So I just, copied the story and then read the text. I
Do you want me to
rewrote
read
it.
it?
Could you?
Yeah, so I'll read it for you. So he kept his beaks open since I caught him. His feathers became shabby and his crest was roughed up. I put the cage on the ground and opened the door. He slowly came out, but didn't fly immediately. I felt silent for a few seconds. I didn't finish the drawing about him, but I was satisfied by being with this majestic bird for the last 2 days. I remember how he screamed in the hotel. I could still hear him in my memory. The battle between the bird and I was unbelievable. When he tried to escape, he would hurt me badly with his beaks. I have never encountered a bird which gives me a sense of danger, thrill, and admiration of its beauty at the same time. I experienced the difference between wild creatures and humans. The ivory-billed woodpecker belongs in a swamp environment, but we humans are fearful and superstitious about these places. We cannot survive the heat, the humidity, the poisonous snakes, and the disease-carrying insects there. The place is of the ivory-billed woodpecker's home. That is why he is so strong. Or it may be the place gives the bird such a strength. I heartily feel nobody has the right to sway him. I am very glad I released him. And I noticed the bird looked at me once again, then flew and disappeared between the bald cypress branches.
Yes, ivory-billed woodpecker was believed it was extinct, but very recent news, some places,
October 22nd.
yes,
Louisiana, yeah.
Louisiana, also, yes, Cuba, people found them, so they are alive.
Okay. So now we're going to make a leap to Scotland. So we were in the UK down south for about 5 years. And then Reiko was doing a PhD up at Robert Gordon University, and we were living in Stonehaven. So this is some work about that transition period when we first got to Scotland. And I'm going to ask Reiko to compare this to some work that she did around a story of a water kelpie, which is actually, we're using darkness as a model for that work. So Reiko, can you just talk about the difference between these two works and what you were trying to accomplish?
Okay, Ranelagh, can you see the forest of Scotland? You see it's about 3 feet by 4 feet, and then it's a Scottish flag. And so the white part, the cross part, is made of washed fleece, and then background is made of unwashed fleece. So the lanolin, the oil of the sheep fur makes this piece. If you wash it, it all becomes white. But it's not just the sheep and then lanolin. It has the second part of the title, Can You See the Forest of Scotland? We were working on trees about the Plein Air for many years, and then finally, we wanted to see, trees and then forests in Scotland. And then it was like 2010.
Show the next slide.
No, not yet. The Scotland, woodland coverage became extremely low, like 15% of entire land. And then only 4% is semi-natural ancient woodland.
Yeah, lowest forage cover in Europe. Yeah.
And then when people think about the image of Scotland is green and then wide open place, but actually those green wide open space is created by sheep grazing, and then the value of the sheep is changing, and then trees are coming back. Next. Yeah. So like this year 2010, we went to Trosak National Park, and then newest national park, and then sheep was moved away, and then we saw thousands of birch trees are coming back. Those reddish ones are all small birch trees, but they're not small. When you look at the bottom part, the trunks are pretty big, like bonsai trees. So sheep was grazing eating the trees for many years, but didn't kill. So they are now coming back as a forest.
Yeah, so these are fields that could have been grazed for the last 200 years, but the seed source is still there, so they're still coming back. Should we talk about another work with birch trees?
Okay, so okay, I cannot really pronounce this very good word, but the meaning is bridle, horse bridle made by birch twigs, and then some horse hair. So and then the photographs of darkness. I found the story. I read it next slide. But people try when people try to catch kelpie, water horse. The water horse kelpie disguised as a very beautiful horse, and they're waiting for you. And then if you ride it, it starts galloping and then goes into the rock to kill the people. And then also kelpie is really detest human greed. But there is a way to catch it, and then so this magic bridle is the way to catch it. So I really wanted to make this birch twig bridle, but the word exists in many stories, but I have never seen the actual ones. So it just needed to create, make up. I looked at the website how to use twigs, soaking the water and then beating up. None of them really worked. So one day we just collected shaded twigs under the tree, and then started just twisting, and then you can make a rope with that. If it's weakened a little bit using darkness tail hair, because so long, yeah. But it's not much. It doesn't need to rely on the hair so much. Just twigs, and then so I made a bridle and then tested with our horse Darkness, right hand side, and he didn't mind. Looks itchy, but actually that when it's fresh ones are not. So anyway, so this is the scene I was twisting the bridle.
Okay, so there was a farmer in Knapdale. It's a rural district in Argyll and Bute in the Scottish Highlands, which is just west of here. Yeah. He had a way of catching a kelpie, a water horse, that lived in a loch near him. When it would come out on the land, the farmer would get it in the Taud Gashtai, which is the name of the bridle in Gaelic. And he could work with the horse like any ordinary horse to till his land and pull a cart. And when the work would be done, he would let the horse, the kelpie, go back to the water again, and he would come back out the next time it was time to work.
Yeah, and I thought that this is a wonderful metaphor in relation to climate change. And this is, it's missing in our culture. This, and then this bridal, the magic is the softness, and then what's the word? Supple. So but that's all.
So the interrelationship with nature is what was important to you. Yeah, the interrelationship with the thing. So we want to conclude. I'm going to ask Reiko to name all the critters that we've lived with over the last 30 years, as well as all the living things that we still live with and are engaged with. So can you just have a go at that? See what you come up with?
Right.
And don't forget to say who they are and what they are.
Yeah, okay. So brown rabbit, hazel, and then lovebirds, Tori and Izo, coronas, laboratory rats, Charlotte and Emily, and pistachio, Stuart, and then Suikyu, cardinal, female cardinal, Oedipus, Eddie, the pigeon, blind pigeon, and then darkness.
And then there's a series of trees. There was a daughter that was in our lives for a while.
In Pittsburgh,
Yeah.
we named the Scarlet.
Scarlet Oak. Yeah.
Scarlet Oak.
And
yes.
then everybody that lives out in front and at the studio.
They don't have really, they're anonymous, but we have many native trees here. Aspens, oak, hazel, ash, what else? Rowan, alder.
And they've all been with us for at least 10 years. Yeah.
And pine trees.
Is there anything else you want to tell them?
No, I think that's it.
You want off the hook, okay?
No, thank you very much. Thank you very much for inviting us.
And thank you for letting me ask Reiko all the hard questions that she never wants to talk about. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, let's stop share, yeah. Okay.
You're muted, Mary.
You're muted, Susan. Still.
You have to unmute yourself, Susan. Unmute.
Now, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I was too busy listening for a change and enjoying every single story. And those kind of anecdotes are what really brings you closer to the non-human beings that you work with. You know, it's like darkness is a real quote unquote person or better than a person that I feel like I know from just your pictures and your writing, and I feel very close to. And I've read in many places that by transmitting this empathy to other people, that's how we can try to save the planet. Because if people don't feel empathy, then they're like that woman who screamed at you in front of the museum. You know, it's like they don't see the bird as a living thing that's part of your environment that, you know, the pigeon in New York doesn't predate people because it was brought there. But it's, you know, all these ways of listening and looking are essential to all of us. And I believe they can be taught, and they can be taught through story and through art and through, you know, taking people on a walk through the woods, or, you know, or through your slag in Pittsburgh, which I saw, which was in person, is like so intimidating that all that was left and ruined the environment for all the animals and plants that have lived there for centuries. So I'm not going to go on and on other than to say it was a wonderful, wonderful talk. And I liked Tim asking you questions and you having the ability to, really show how it is that you work and how you look at every living thing. And so now we're going to go to anything, Mary? Where did Mary go?
I'm here.
Mary has some business to, weed
Well, we
business to
want to
say.
thank you all again for coming. We're going to stop this recording and we'll start another recording within a minute. And Jane Davidson will be leading the discussion. We just want to remind you that WEAD is always needing support to do more beautiful presentations. So we have a donation button in the chat, and be sure and visit the magazine new issue and the Power of Empathy exhibition, which just launched.
Mhm.
So let's stop this recording.